Narendra Taneja, the leading energy expert in India. Narendra, your thoughts on $90 average oil on Brent and what its impact is on India? It would appear not very much.
Well, $90 per barrel Brent is a terribly bad news for India. Since we're a large importer, heavily dependent on imports, roughly 86% of total requirement is imported. And so anything which is like, let's say, more than $67, $68 per barrel is a bad news. So on the one hand, we see Brent rising, and at the same time, we see the geopolitical tremors we see in Europe and also, of course, in part of the Middle East, including drones. Give sleepless nights to consumers in India. And at the same time, we also are very you see a lot of anxiety because this defunding oil campaign that's going on in the Western part of the world, is another issue which is very disturbing. We find very disturbing because defunding would mean that, oil is going to go up on a sustained basis in about 15 to 16 months from now. Which of course is a very bad news because India's economy, like many others in the world, is heavily dependent on oil. India is still an oil economy. We see actually many parts of the world still oil economy, but it seems that many in the world, Western part of the world, they don't understand it. And defunding oil, underinvestment in oil and exploration production in the medium to long term, giving us a very difficult time to India. But today, yes, crude touching $90 per barrel, terribly bad news.
But yet in India, we're seeing the refiners going all out in India at these prices. The state-run Indian Oil Corporation, Bharat Petroleum Corporation, are reaching out to term contract suppliers, including Saudi Arabia, to try and buy extra barrels.
Well, simply because the demand is growing. You see with COVID, Omicron kind of getting out of the way, and 1.68 billion, vaccines administered. So India is in a rather safe zone when it comes to COVID. And number of cases rapidly going down. Like in my city, New Delhi, number of new cases yesterday was just 1,300 in a city of 20 million people. So which means that people have started going out, schools have reopened, businesses have reopened, people are out in the street, which demand is going up. So, so these refiners, they have to buy it and then sell it both domestically. Let's not forget India is also a major exporter of products, petrol, diesel, turbine fuel, and all that. We export roughly 105 countries around the world, including most Western countries. So that component is also there. But most importantly, economic sentiments are very, very high. GDP is growing. We are back now as the fastest growing emerging economy in the world. When you look around India, talk with the people, COVID is very much there, but you see things are opening and enthusiasm is back, activities are back. So when that happens, since we are an oil economy, as I said, which means that more demand for oil. So these companies have to go out, reach out wherever they can and bring that oil to India for refining because the market is very much there. Market is active and time to come, demand is only going to grow.
In demand destruction, we saw in the first half of the 2010-11 to 2015, $100 oil average. Everybody, India seemed to progress well then. Your thoughts on when does this, let's say $90 average in the first quarter, when does it start to impact demand destruction in Asia, not just India, but across Asia? What would be your outlook for the year at this altitude of price on demand destruction in Asia?
Well, good question. I mean, when you look at economies like India or Indonesia, for that matter, even Bangladesh and Vietnam, and I think China.
And these are countries with, like, Vietnam has 100 million people, Indonesia is nearly 300 million,
exactly.
Bangladesh is nearly 200 million. These are big countries.
These big countries and heavily dependent on oil. So I mean, I don't really see, even if the prices go up to $100 per barrel, that you would see any demand destruction, any significant demand destruction, because the economies are such the very fundamentals that they need oil. Without oil, the economy will just come to a standstill, to complete halt. I mean, transition is happening, but transition is in addition to oil. I mean, solar in India, for instance, in addition to oil. So solar is not growing at the cost of oil or the cost of natural gas. That's not happening. So that's all in addition. So I don't really see that, that would impact or lead to any kind of demand destruction in economies like Bangladesh, Pakistan, or India, or Indonesia, or Vietnam, or for that matter, even in China. So my sense is that, the only difference would be that economies like India and Bangladesh government will be forced to cut taxes. And therefore, their own fiscal discipline and fiscal deficit would be impacted. And of course, the value of rupee or taka in Bangladesh would be impacted. All that would happen to adjust and accommodate, what happens to oil prices. That's what I said that, in India in particular, or you see the same in several of the economies in Asia, the worry is that, when the Western countries push for defunding, that don't invest in oil, this, underinvestment and exploration in particular, that's worries us because we know it, looking realistically, the oil horizon, natural gas horizon, 5 to 10 years from now, these economies are going to consume more oil. I mean, simply in order to achieve that.
Well, if we look at the immediate,
if we look at the immediate economy. Yeah, I mean,
if we look at the immediate sense, what is the incentive of Saudi, OPEC plus to produce more oil? And some of them can still add oil to lower prices, if you like, to meet the demand that's there. What incentive would they have to do so if demand destruction is secure?
Well, very, very, very good question. I mean, first of all, I don't really see that, except for Saudi Arabia, any other producer is in a position to actually suddenly start pumping more oil. I mean, even if the sanctions go tomorrow, against Iran, it will take them some time to rebuild their export infrastructure. Their export infrastructure is rather antique, and Russia is pumping, as much as they can. And, so we don't really see, so only country is Saudi Arabia. And good thing about Saudi Arabia is that they can look at the future. They know it. If the prices go beyond a certain limit, then, these countries like India and many others will be pushed actually invest even more and fast track investment in renewables and try to artificially, reduce their dependence on oil, even if it means some inconvenience to the people or some damage to the economy. We don't think Saudi Arabia would want that. It's a very smart company. Aramco is a very smart company. So therefore, we think that, and at the same, let's not forget, behind the market, countries like India and Japan, United States, they are talking, they're talking regularly with big producers like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like Russia. They're talking regularly. And we also have this hope, that this is the election year in the United States, election for Congress, that America is going to put even more pressure on Saudi Arabia to make sure the oil prices do not go to a level which ordinary consumer in the US find against Democrats. They vote them out of Congress. So there are many things are being studied, but my sense is in immediate term, we don't need to worry too much, but medium to long term, economies like India need to worry because even if Saudi Arabia wants, even if market wants, even if they put diplomatic pressure on the big producer, this just would not be sufficient amount of oil available because enough, investment is not going in that direction. That is biggest worry than what we, for instance, are going to face over the next 4 or 5 months.
For India, obviously, it's still early in the year. Forecasts, this fastest growing emerging economy, etc. Where are some of the headwinds? Obviously, the oil price is some sort of a headwind for India coming out of COVID. What are the other headwinds you're facing, do you think, as you look at that chart or that potential of 10% GDP growth in 2022?
Well, of course, oil, of course, is a very important player when it comes to the overall, the chessboard, whether economic India, political India, for that matter, even social India. For the first time, let me share with you, oil has always been a politically hot potato in India, but the first time we have elections going on some of the state parliaments. For the first time, some political parties are now offering free oil to the voters. They say, if you vote us, we come to power, we'll give you oil for free. Some parties are saying 2 liters, some are saying 1 liter and all that, but it's the first time. So this clearly shows that, oil has become a very, very hot potato in politics, which means if oil prices go $90 per barrel tomorrow, 95 for that matter, 100, that means the government will have no option but to cut taxes. because beyond a point, the ordinary consumer would not be able to, take that burden. So the government will have to share that burden with the consumer by lowering the taxes. So, but would that lead to demand destruction? Would people stop consuming oil? Because that's not going to happen simply because that means basically, stopping economic activity, whether you are an individual or you are an organization or you are a business. And that is not an option because the government wants business to grow. Government is incentive. Look at every single policy of the government. They are incentivizing business. They are encouraging people to launch businesses, reopen factories, go for optimum production. At the same time, look at number of car sales in India or motorbikes and all that is growing all the time. You see, so I mean, you need oil to run all these millions and millions of motor vehicles. We have in my city, Delhi alone, we have got 15 million motor vehicles. So you need oil for that. So the simple fact is that
15 million motorbikes
in Delhi alone.
15 million motorbikes in Delhi alone.
In Delhi alone, yes. So imagine in a city of
God, what would happen if they became cars?
Exactly. So this is what the reality is. So that's what I'm saying. That destruction is a very strong word, and we are quite hopeful that post this summer, that is May and June in India, we're going to see economy almost back to normal, and which means demand for oil is only going to grow, demand for natural gas is going to grow, demand for energy as a whole is only going to grow, and which means that if prices go there, the government, whether it's federal government or the state government, would be forced to cut taxes. Because there is a big kind of, they make roughly 50 to 52% of what we pay at the petrol pump goes to the government, whether it's state or the federal. So there is always a room, but that means the government would be forced to cut some of the social schemes that they run, and there are hundreds of them. When they do that, there would be a political cost for political parties in power, whether it's the state or at the center. So it's a big vicious circle. So therefore, the government is trying very hard at the national level, in touch with the US, in touch with Japan, even with China, and in touch with Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, and all that, to do something about it. Because prices go beyond that, then we will have no option but to invest more in renewables, and that may be not a good news for you in the medium to long term, especially medium, 5 to 7 years. Then India would be in a different boat altogether. If they don't want that to happen, then they have to keep oil prices below a certain level. Up to 80 would be acceptable.
I think perhaps
anything more than 80 would be
I think we
difficult.